Welcome to another episode of Think Out Loud. And today's special guest is an expert within the digital marketing field. With over 20 years experience and having worked within this industry since before Google Ads even existed, she has trained agency teams and clients in the art of paid media and SEO, and now works as a lead consultant, helping businesses really improve their digital marketing strategies. Lead consultant at Digital Clarity, Rachel Mepham, welcome.
Thank you. It is great to be here. This is bizarre, but very cool. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, as I say, it's great to have you here. And you may well have heard of what used to be called our quick fire round, which I've actually adjusted the name of because it wasn't really quick fire. I've now called it the intrigue round. So are you ready? Come on, let's do this.
I am ready.
Okay, question number one. What is your favorite alcoholic beverage?
Okay, without a doubt, it has to be cider. Anyone that knows me will know that I always drink cider. I pass on the wine, well, occasionally I'll have a beer, maybe like with a lager top. But cider is my bag, although it used to be when I was younger. I had a few bad experiences, so knocked the head off the cider for a while. Used to drink pints of lager.
About it, exactly the same thing happened to me.
The turning point for me, I went on a cider tour, and it was down in Cornwall, and I think it's Healy's Cider Farm. And they do a cider called the Cornish Rattler, which is absolutely delicious. Quite strong though, so I can only have like one bottle of that, otherwise I'm on the floor. There's so much more choice of cider down here, it's amazing.
That is amazing. Okay, question number two. What are your top 3 films and why?
Top 3 films. Oh, it's such a difficult one to answer, isn't it? Because actually, there's too many. There's too many good films. And also, I have different tastes in films. So it can range anything from a Disney film through to a Tarantino. But I do think one of Tarantino's films is one of my favorites, which is True Romance.
I love that film. Oh, it's such a good film. There's action in there, there's a bit of drug dealing, there's comedy, there's some great actors. One of my favorite scenes in that is Brad Pitt.
So I don't know if anyone, it's a bit more under the radar than the Pulp Fictions and Reservoir Dogs. But True Romance, it was written by Tarantino, and he actually back in the day sold that script to Tony Scott for about, I think it was $50,000 or something.
Oh my goodness.
Probably alongside that, Goodfellas. So a fantastic kind of gangster film. And the third one, there are some, it's a difficult one. Let's go with Uncle Buck. It's a pretty good film, to be honest. I love it. It's a feel-good film, even though it's like cringy and awkward all the way through. It kind of turns out good.
That Uncle Buck is an absolute classic. John Candy makes that film. It also stars Macaulay Culkin as a tiny little kid in that, isn't he? Before he became super famous, I think.
But on the list behind that, it's very close. Coming to America, Thelma and Louise, Pulp Fiction, even fantastic film. The Green Mile, that's a good film. And like Disney, going back to Disney, The Lion King, it's a classic.
So the third and final question, and you are doing very well so far. You're up there with some of the guests that have been on here previously. So the third question, if you can have any custom vehicle, anything at all, then what would that be?
Okay, well, it would have to be some kind of custom pickup truck or van or something like that. In a black cherry, huge wheels, tires, hand stitched leather seats. I think, yeah, something like that. Something a bit gritty, something that looks a bit mean, but it's big and it's bulky and it's a nice upright position within the driving seat. That is amazing.
I want one of those.
Having driven a camper van for a long time, it's nice to sit up high rather than whenever I get in other people's cars, it's like you're sat on the floor. It's really weird. Although saying that, it can't be too big because the roads down here in Devon sometimes get a little bit narrow. And there's a program actually that me and my partner watch called Count's Customs. The guy is the Count, and he creates these custom vehicles, motorbikes and vans and trucks and cars. And the guy that does the paint jobs there is just absolutely unbelievable. The black cherry with the slightly light on the black, I think it's just a beautiful color for a vehicle, slightly mean, slightly aggressive, but also very cool and calm and sophisticated.
Some great answers there. Fantastic. Thank you. Now, let's get down to business. Can you tell me a little bit about digital clarity? What you do, who you are, why you're here?
Sure. So Digital Clarity started originally as a PPC agency, so a pay-per-click agency. And really the goal, the opportunity that the business saw was that not many people back then really understood how paid search worked. It was a very new concept. There was, I mean, Google Ads didn't even exist yet. So if you think like way back then, it's difficult to imagine. But there were other platforms, Overture, which then ended up powering Yahoo. There was also Niva, Mirago, all these weird and wonderful names for different platforms that we worked with. And so really our core business sat behind big media buying agencies. Our teams did all the reporting, the analysis and the optimization of those platforms for some very big brands. But everything was sort of sat behind the scenes. So we would feed into the agencies and give them the reporting and the insight that they needed. And we would do all the kind of pulling of the levers behind the scenes to actually make those campaigns successful. And over time, as any good company should do, or good agency should do, is we adapted and we evolved. And we started to offer SEO services because they complemented the paid search. And it was also an area that was quite a grey area. And I think SEO back then was a bit grubby as well. A lot of dodgy links and dodgy content being produced. So we kind of took that under our wing and tried to do a better job than what was available out there at the time. Social media came along and that dovetailed in with paid search and SEO. And also things like display ads as well. So we started to combine an actual full service across digital channels for clients direct as well as some of the agencies. And I think there was a kind of turning point where we had created a platform, DC Storm, which initially was there to optimize advertising across different channels. That then got sold, and we then started to champion another platform, software platform called Omniture, which was since purchased by Adobe. But we were the first UK, I think even maybe European business to be promoting and utilizing their search platform, but also the analytics side of things over here in the UK. And that took us down a number of different routes, really, because we became experts at analytics and the data side of things, but we also became, it kind of put us in a pot of a tech support, and we started to go down that route. So we then had to review, evolve, and adapt our business to what we really wanted to be. And that was supporting clients and businesses through any aspect of digital advertising and digital marketing, and helping them really to do it better. Now, over that time, you know, everyone and their dog became a digital marketing expert. You could go to YouTube, watch a few videos, pick up a few tips, start to sell it. It kind of lowered the space that we were in, it diluted it, and there were companies that were just serving clients for very little fees and just kind of churning and burning. They just sent through an invoice at the end of the month and claimed to do some management, and kind of dirtied our industry, to be honest. Put us in the pot with, on one hand, estate agents, and then on the other side, insurance. I do think that is one of the big problems within this industry, is that people can kind of self-train. There's a lot of content online to learn how to do these things yourself, which is fantastic. But then a lot of people go and sell that as a service, and that's where it muddies the water. There have been, over my time working within this industry, a lot of cowboys. And you mentioned there about estate agents, insurance companies. There's probably plenty of others that I could list down. But bringing it back in, I think the problem with this industry is it's difficult. To do it really well is actually difficult. And I'm not talking about setting up ads and you know, following some basic practices. I'm talking about actually strategizing where you're trying to get to as a business. And I think that's one of the biggest gaps that I see when I'm working with businesses as well, is that there is a real disconnect between what the senior members of the business want, the stakeholders, the CEOs, etc., and where they want to go, and the tiers of marketing and sales and the operations and the delivery teams. So that's something that fascinates me as to why that hasn't got better connected. And even just in regards to marketing versus sales, it is a fight. It's not always working cohesively together. And I find that that is a really huge loophole in regards to where businesses are falling down. Yeah, exactly. So we kind of took a step back and we said, right, what is it that we really are good at, that we can really help businesses with, that they're struggling with at the moment? And over that time, we really adapted who we were, what we did, and how we help businesses. And that's evolved into what we do today, which is much more of a consultative approach and looking at the business rather than just looking at the marketing channels that are being utilized. We go right back to basics to understand, you know, if with your business, what it is that you do, why you do it, what makes you really different to the competitors out there, and how you can disrupt the market rather than just say, you know, same old. Oh, we're honest and we're reward winning and we're trustworthy and we're experts and we've got X amount of experience. Everyone's saying the same thing. So how can you distinguish your own business from everyone else when you're saying the same kinds of things, maybe in a slightly different way, but really it is the same thing? So we sit down with companies and we really try to help them, particularly B2B companies, help them distinguish where they sit in the market, where the gaps are, where the opportunities are that they're perhaps missing at the moment, and how the whole teams, marketing teams, the senior teams, senior management, and the sales teams can kind of work more effectively together towards realistic goals. And we've seen a lot of success with that. It's something that businesses need, something that they want and they're asking for. And our team has a lot of experience behind us from, learning what does and what doesn't work and where the pitfalls are, and having worked with so many different businesses over time that, we can kind of see some of these things a mile away, some of the issues that are very repetitive issues across lots of different companies. They're all sort of tripping up over similar hurdles, and it takes someone to shine a light on those hurdles and help them to jump over them. And that's what digital clarity do.
I think that's a really interesting way of approaching it, is speaking with the CEOs first, rather than a lot of agencies go in at the marketing level and then sell into the marketing teams. It's their decision essentially as to whether they use your services or not. But from what you're saying, this sounds like a much more consultative approach, a much more business-driven approach, rather than like a generic marketing agency or digital marketing agency. Is that right?
Yes, so we tend to go in and speak to the senior levels first, so the CEOs, the business owners, the founders, and talk to them about what the challenges are that they're having at the moment, because often those will filter down into the rest of the teams. And if there's a lack of clarity, that sometimes can be causing a problem. If the goals are not being met, there's going to be numerous reasons why that actually is. So starting at the top is actually an important step that we take.
And can you tell us a bit more about that? How does that work?
I think one of the things we see a lot is that companies are reluctant to change. And that really is a sticking point. Or they maybe think they're changing, but they're not applying that change in the right way, or the company isn't buying into the change. And so one of the most frustrating things for us sometimes is we know what needs prescribing, and we can see where the gaps are, and we advise on what needs to be done, but those things are not always applied. And that's for a number of different reasons, but I think the challenge of change often is one of the main reasons. People think they can change. Sometimes it's a bit harder than perhaps they think it's going to be.
Change is difficult. I think it's difficult for humans of any kind to make change. It's uncomfortable, it's unnatural, it's easier to stay where you are, even if that's not necessarily a good place. So it's interesting that you say that one of the biggest hurdles is businesses actually changing things. Sometimes I think you think you're making changes, but you're not really. You're just kind of doing the same thing in a slightly different way, which isn't really change. So I totally get it. I totally understand. And I guess if a lot more businesses put themselves in a position where they were able to change and shift with the market and with the needs of their clients, then maybe they would have more success. Great explanation. Thank you. Okay, so question number 2 is a bit more of a personal one, but still within business. And it's a question which I think we don't often always ask ourselves. So this is, I don't exactly know the definition of irony, but this is nearly like a bit of a loop here. I'm talking to myself about myself, asking a question about what I think about myself. Bonkers.
You're right, that is a bit bonkers. And this is a bit weird, but it's good. It's good. It might work, might catch on.
But the question is, why do you do what you do?
So I have always liked learning new things. The process of learning, not through school, but the process of learning and self-teaching myself things and picking up new skills, that is something that's really important to me and something that's ingrained in me. And alongside that, if I can help people as I do that, then that's a match made in heaven for me. as I said, Google Ads didn't exist. So I was having to learn from the very beginning how to do things, implementing new reporting structures to show certain things. There weren't all the templates and all the dashboards that you can get now. It was much early days when you had to kind of create things yourself. So that was amazing. That was fun. That was exciting. So on some of your previous podcasts that you might have done, I'm learning to row, coastal rowing. I've done a welding course to learn how to weld metal together because it's interesting, it's exciting. But I like learning, I like applying myself, and I like the feeling of making change. And as I say, helping people along the way as well. So I never set out to be a manager within an agency or a consultant. That wasn't really the plan. There wasn't a plan, I guess. But along my journey from being a greenhorn, learning the basics of pay-per-click, all the way through that journey, I've always done the best that I can do. I've always been a grafter, and I'm an innovator, I would say. Sometimes I can get a little bit too hooked up on ideas, but at the end of the day, I always try to help people be the best that they can be. So by me having high standards, sometimes, hopefully that rubs off on others. And actually, some of the people that have passed through the DC doors have gone on to do some really amazing things and work for some amazing companies. So that makes me really proud. That is the thing about this business, is all about the people that you're working with, people that you're working for, clients, employers, employees, teammates, partnerships within business. You meet so many different people within this type of industry, and many of them will go on to be sort of friends for life, which is amazing. And I think it must have had some of an impact, because in the office there used to be a board, like a whiteboard, which had the WWRD, which whenever I was on holiday, on annual leave, it would be, what would Rachel do? And that makes me feel great, because they're using me as a guide, but they're applying themselves to be able to achieve what they need to achieve whilst I'm not there. And so that really was quite touching and quite amazing. And I'm really proud of that. I love that. I want a what would Rachel do board. So that's why I do what I do, to make people realize that they can be better, to make people realize their own potential, and to share my learnings and my skills with those individuals and groups in order for them to succeed. There is something in helping others be the best that they can be that is so rewarding, isn't it? I totally hear you on that. Plus, to save up for that custom truck. Okay, so question 3, we're nearly there. This is a biggie though. So my question to you is, based on the evolution of artificial intelligence and the likes of ChatGPT, where do you see digital marketing going in the next 5 to 10 years? Because if we're where we are now and we can do these types of things with automation, 5 or 10 years, surely there's going to be some crazy things going on. ChatGPT. Well, let me start off by saying what a terrible name. I can never remember it. It doesn't roll off the tongue, does it? But I guess it's a tech AI thing. So I actually did ask ChatGPT why, and like, what would a better name be? So I've got it here. So I asked them, what would a better name be for ChatGPT? And the initial answer was GPT Chat. Very innovative there, very robotic answer. So I then regenerated the answer and came back with this. It depends on the context, but some suggestions could be AI companion, mind pal, talk bot, AI helper, chat AI, and clever bot. So yeah, I'm sure probably most of those are taken. I don't know whether ChatGPT runs through all the checks to see whether those exist or not. Who knows? Might be something I'll look into afterwards, but yeah, it's everywhere at the moment. ChatGPT is on the lips of everyone. Every bit of content that you read is talking about ChatGPT or similar ways of producing things automatically using AI and automation to produce code, scripts, content, images, etc. So it is massive, but it's also limiting, I think, at the moment. It's only based on the data that is available to it. And I think that that is a limitation, even though it's constantly learning. It certainly has its place for a lot of different things and different tasks. This first kind of version that's been exposed to the public, a lot of this has been behind sort of closed doors, and now it's been promoted to see what the reaction will be, how people interact with it, how people use it, what the feedback is on testing out a number of things. There are issues, there are errors, that you're having to re-ask questions in a different way to get the answer that you want. But then the more information you feed it, the more you realign those questions. All of those questions will be building up its intelligence and its learning. So it will improve. I'm not sure. I read an article, someone had shared it on LinkedIn about a guy who has created, I think it's called Chat. It's called GPT-0, and it's based on the premise of trying to understand whether content has been produced by AI or whether it is actually human content. And the purpose behind this was so that people can't cheat within education. So you can't use ChatGPT to write your essays and your reports. And if you have, you can be found out by using this alternative platform that plugs into ChatGPT. So I thought that was quite an interesting outlook. I think there's going to be a lot of conflict around the fact that people are using automated content and not writing that content. And maybe you'll have to disclose it or whatever. So I think that's going to cause issues. Like the old AI, Tom Cruise. I don't know if you've seen many of the celebrities that now have sort of digitized versions of themselves, not that they've necessarily created, but where does that lead us down a complex avenue of, do we need actors at all? If we can create digital versions of them and we can get those digital versions to do what they do for a cheaper cost and there's no injuries to be had, then, why do we need actors after all? However, AI in general, if we take Google Ads, for example, over the last 12 months, there's been some really painful, difficult, annoying AI things going on. Automation has just led to errors and issues and problems, automatically preventing ads from showing because it doesn't quite understand the context of why actually it should be okay for those ads to show. So trademark terms, disapprovals of ads, loads of different things that have cropped up, particularly in the last 12 months. I don't know why that is, what changes they've specifically made around that. But everything goes through a first phase automation and then even a second phase automation, and then it's only picked up manually once you flag concerns, etc., which is kind of fine, but those automations need to work correctly. Exact matching to anything. Oh, so frustrating. Exact match is an exact match. It's kind of turning into broad match because Google are going to force you into using broad match because they're taking away any control of the other terms. They're putting all the control within their systems. And with that, there's definitely a mix of some positive results, but also some negative, some things you're matching to that you never would want to. And that gives more work to kind of block out those terms unless you're then opting into the auto bidding strategies that are supposed to work, that I've seen complete disasters on as well. So some examples of those trademark terms being blocked. I've seen the word linked, whether that's associated to LinkedIn or not, I'm not sure. The word get, Father Christmas, that was a classic. I can't believe that someone had Father Christmas trademarked. Who owns Father Christmas? Exactly. With many of the clients that I've worked with, they are selling low volume, high value software or technology. And in that instance, you're not looking for hundreds of conversions, thousands of conversions. So therefore, there's very limited data to work off. So how can an AI understand at this current point? I don't think it can understand that actually no conversions aren't necessarily a bad thing because those searches are at certain points within that user journey. Now, for sure, I think that is going to develop. I absolutely believe that it will become more intelligent and will understand things like that. And how long that takes, no idea. Where I see the huge benefits at the moment and in the future are producing content, ideas, concepts, definitions around things, questioning and deeper diving into context around things. And it's a quicker way of accessing that. So someone would be able to get to that point, but AI will be able to give instant results around those things. I agree. I think content in certain ways, I think it's going to massively develop over the years. I think right now it's early stages and it's okay. It's amazing that it can create the content that it can, but there are huge holes. So having tested this out a little bit myself, I came across the fact that I ended up spending nearly as much time editing and changing and making sense of the copy and making it richer and better than actually, like, maybe it could have taken me to write it from scratch. So maybe gets you started on something, which sometimes is the hardest part. However, I think in the long term, things like creating art or graphics or code and things like that, which have evolved over all the time of learning that they've achieved, I think there could be some amazing things. At school, I hated maths. I found it bizarre that although you can have a calculator, you're not allowed to use it in the exams, which is a bit bizarre, but I guess we all have to go back to mental arithmetic just in case all the calculators are banned from the world or whatever. So from calculators to film recommendations to product suggestion to things that make my life easier to make choices. All of those things I think are very positive, and I think those will improve and evolve over time within marketing, within advertising, and will become better and more efficient. Where I see the problem is trying to pin down who you're talking to. AI doesn't know everything about you. It knows what it's been told about you. It can't learn anything that it's not told. So unless you're combining all of your user behaviors in every aspect of your life, which, okay, 5 to 10 years, is that possible? Maybe it is. Maybe we'll be like plugging in or using brain signals rather than voice commands or whatever, and that may lead to that. But I think it's difficult for an automated system that's only learning off what it's been told to understand all aspects. So let me give you an example. I am a 42-year-old female. I'm a marketing consultant. I love Uncle Buck, but I also love Pulp Fiction. I used to drink cider on a park bench, then I stopped drinking cider. Now I drink cider again. I love to eat meat, but I'm also an animal lover. I have 2 kittens and I feed them cat food, not kitten food. I own a camper van, but also a 3-wheel motorbike. I am eco-conscious, but I think the way that recycling in this country is done is a farce. And I think there's so many issues with it that I'm not even going to get started on that. I would rather be given tools, spanners, pliers for a Christmas present or a Valentine's present than bath salts and aromatherapy or whatever. But at the same time, if someone buys me a massage, I'm all up for that. But a deep tissue, not a aromatherapy massage. So I've been working in marketing for 20 years and I wouldn't know how to advertise to myself, because which self am I advertising to? You or me? And so I guess I don't really know the answer to your question. All I know is that AI can help. ChatGPT and the likes will help, but they will evolve and they will improve, and new players will come into the market that already for sure are being created. And things will change and evolve and improve. There will still be the requirement for human invention, human interaction, human skill sets to be able to control, feed, manipulate the data, drive the direction of what these tools are going to be able to do for us. And with that come more complexities that you need more AI and more tools to address anyway. So for the next 5 to 10 years, I'm not too scared. Maybe 50 years or so, when I'm long gone, the world will be a completely different place with AI running everything. I'm not an expert on that, so I couldn't tell you. But I think for now, let's test these things out. Let's experience them. Let's try them. Let's see what happens. And without doing that, you're not going to know if it's going to be beneficial or not. And without the innovators that are creating these types of platforms and this type of artificial intelligence, then we're going to stay static. So I'm all for it. I just don't think it is ready to be used in all instances at the moment. I hope that answers your question. That has answered my question to a degree anyway. It's a much bigger conversation, isn't it? AI, machine learning, the metaverse, cryptocurrencies. We could hone in on each one individually and probably have another half-hour chat about each one. So thank you for all your ideas, all your input, all your sharing with us today. It's been such a treat to have you. This has been so much fun. I've got the light shining through the blinds whilst you're asking me these questions, so apologies for that. It's right in my eyes. It's been great. I totally want to get my black cherry custom truck now. It's like going to be pinned on my pin board so that I can actually go and get it. It's my motivation. But yeah, it's been brilliant. Thank you. Hopefully
you listeners have enjoyed today. It's been a bit of a different one for sure, and I look forward to speaking to you again on the next one for another episode of Think Out Loud.